Welcome everybody into our 23 fiscal year Q2 grantee orientation briefing. We are here to ask questions and share, and I'll go through some basic procedures with you this morning, and then plenty of time for questions. I want to thank everybody for your patience. We were so thrilled with the number of applications that we received during Q2. We kind of got overwhelmed. It was great. So we are now streamlining some of our process. So hopefully we can kind of move things. And I love your feedback as we continue to grow this process. And thank you for your patience during all of this. We are going to start off talking a little bit about distribution. Some of you have already finished to sign your grant agreement and have your state vendor number, and your paperwork has been submitted to the SCDAH, with Department of Archives and History, which we are under their umbrella. Once it goes to finance, 80% of your grant award amount will be sent to you either through the direct deposit if you have that set up with your state vendor number, or as a check. The final 20% will be submitted with the final paperwork, including receipts, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. And I will say that at the end, for those of you who were approved officially at the January 17th executive committee meeting, we will give you at the very end, we'll go through signing that grant agreement, and you will be receiving an award letter hopefully by the end of day today. So thank you again for your patience on that. So now that we're spending the people's money, let's make the most of it, and let's be as transparent as possible, which means receipts, 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 and lots of paperwork. I'm so sorry. So thank you for your patience with that. Reports and deadlines. These dates will actually, the first thing that'll happen is sometime between now and April the 15th, there will be quote unquote a site visit. This does not mean we're actually going to come to you. It may mean we come to you, but it's probably just a phone call, an email, checking in with you to see kind of your status. This is not something you need to stress about. This is on our staff or commissioners to reach out to you and say, how's it going? Do you think you're going to meet your deadline? Are you having any trouble with reaching your deliverables? This is just a check-in from us. So that'll happen sometime between now and April the 15th. Then the status report will, and that should say 23, I apologize. So everybody take note, I will adjust that before I send these notes out to you. But that should be this May 15th for your status report. This is really important that we all meet that deadline because I have to have something in my notes before the end of the fiscal year. And this gives us a chance to ask you any questions on that status report. This again is just a check-in. How are we doing on reaching our deliverables? Have you hit a snag? Are there any challenges that we could maybe help you with? Are we online for our budget? You know, any questions like that? That's what it's really short couple questions that you have to answer in the system, and we're going to walk through how to do that in just a moment. And again, that should be May 15th of 23. The final report for this cycle will be due on November the 15th. And if that does not fit the timeline, if you don't think you're going to be done with your project by that, we're going to talk about extending that, and there are possibilities to do that. But we'd like to wrap up these grants and final report, including the fiscal receipts, those financial reports, no later than November 15th of this year. This will be completed by you as well. So you're responsible for the status report in May and the final report in November, and then one of us will reach out to you sometime between now and April 15th, just as a check-in on your site, quote unquote, site visit. So just like you did with your contract and signing your contract, you're going to go into your grant, and in your grant components, you're going to have status reports. And we'll walk through a demo of how to fill out a status report in just a moment. Very, very important. Say your receipts. I cannot say this enough. We worked very hard to get this 80% upfront approved. This is not traditional in-state grants. Most of them are reimbursement grants. So we really had to push because we know you guys, a lot of you don't have cash flow for some of this. So we really pushed hard to get them to say okay to doing 80% upfront. But that means that we really need your help to make sure we receive all the receipts for the grant funds and including documentation on your matching funds. So make sure you're keeping receipts of that as well. Document your deliverables. And one of the challenges I'm seeing is some of these applications come in, and that's why I've worked and negotiated with a lot of y'all on really defining those deliverables. Those should be those tangible things that come out at the end of the day. And in your grant agreement, there's a line that specifically talks about those deliverables that came straight from your application. And we want to make sure that we are really hitting those marks. If not, we need to talk about if we need to adjust those deliverables in your contract, and that would be a grant agreement adjustment. So it would be a contract amendment, and that is also found in that same area. One of the other components is a contract amendment that does need to be approved by myself and our executive director. We typically not had a problem with any of these adjustments because they're usually minor, but it's great if y'all will bring these questions, these changes in budget, timeline, or really, and also budget allocation. Technically, any change in allocation, meaning from one type of funding to an, I should say not funding, but allocation. So if you're going to move from contract into materials, more than 10% change, then you need to check in with us first. We are open to changes, but please talk to us first. And I stress we don't want to be doing this at the very last minute. So please reach out to us prior to those report deadlines to work on these contract amendments because they do have to go through hopefully a quick approval process, but they do have to be approved. Okay. And just a reminder that while technically the state grants do not fall under state procurement, we do highly encourage that you follow your fiscal agent's documented procurement policy. If you don't have a written policy, we have some basic state procurement policy on our website. And I'll walk you through where you can find that. And if you need to reach out about that, please let us know. And then that final 20%. So if your fiscal agent is not a county or city, and this is a county only for County 250 organizing grant, do we sometimes send 100% of the funds if you're a county or city. Otherwise, we also send 80% of those organizing grants up front. And then the final 20% for competitive grants all come at the end as well. So we have to have those receipts. However, if waiting on this funding would keep you from finalizing your project, such as I don't think anybody on here right now has buying property. If you need to commit to all the money and you have a contract that you could document how this money was going to be spent, we can work with you on that. But ideally, we'd like to have all the documentation, all the receipts, all the paperwork, and then we would send you that last 20%. So you can actually apply for another grant program. So don't forget that one of the nice things about the system is that it does allow you to copy and clone your application and you can apply for a different grant. So keep that in mind. And then, of course, remember that we are here to help you and answer questions. And we're your team. We want to help. We want you guys to succeed. That is our goal. We know that with state funding, it's lots of documentation and it can get really cumbersome. But we appreciate your flexibility with that and appreciate you guys working with us on that process. Now, I'm going to escape out of here and see if we can get to our demo section. Before we do that, while I'm doing that and getting this, yeah, there we go. All right. Does anybody have any questions before I go into the demo for today? Okay. Remember, you're probably all on mute if you did have a question. So I'm going to sign in as my outside user. And you're going to go down. You've got to put your any approaching deadlines will show up here in your dashboard. So keep that in mind. If you have any negotiations that we are going back and forth about making changes, that should show up there. Mainly though, you want to look at your grants. So y'all won't have this many. I'm working with lots of different organizations with this user. So let me find one that's a test one. Let me go find this one here. So anytime that you hover in the system and the line turns green, you can click anywhere on that line. So I'm going to select my grant. And here are our grant components. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. All right, so I'm going to go through and show you how to sign the contract for those who have not done that already. So once you go into your contract, you want to select, normally you would only have one, but I added one to this so I could sign it this morning for you. So I'm going to go to my approved one. Again, it turns green. I can click on it. And over here in the right-hand side, you should have a signatures button. So I'm going to click on that. And notice there is a line 2. So your user, the user that's going to sign this, does have to be officially a signator on the account that on the organization. So if any reason you don't have that signature button, please reach out to me and I can see if by accident you were not authorized for signing, or maybe this is someone else in your organization that needs to be able to sign in. Let me know and we can work that out and get them set up as a signator. But we can also, what I'm seeing a lot of people do is say, I'm going to sign, and I'm going to do today's date, and then I'm going to say over here, as I did right here, as approved, or almost as approved by Molly Fortune. So I'm going to say I've sent this through my boss, and I'm going to sign this, and I'm going to save my signature. So then you have your contract. Always double check and please read your contract before you sign it. Make sure all the documentation is correct. And here's section B. Expected outcome is a report from the historian listing the assets. Y'all's is probably a little bit longer than this, but this is what is you're saying that we will deliver this by the end of our grant cycle. So make really sure that you're going to be able to deliver this with the funding that you have, and really proof this and let us know if you have any questions about that. A lot of you, this one does not, of course, this is an organizing grant contract, but if you have a competitive contract, it may have a match requirement, and you'll see that match requirement show up in section A here that'll document that you know that you have to spend at least that much of your own money and document it for this grant. So once you have this, you want to print this, I highly encourage you to come back to the top and print to PDF because it formats it. Sometimes it gets a little janky when you're doing otherwise. So make sure that you're printing to PDF and you can save that to your computer, share it with your boss, share it with other folks. So did it stop sharing? It did, didn't it? So I'm going to go back and see if I can share again. Okay. Can everybody see now? We're good on sharing still? Okay. Let me go to the next section. So I'm going to go back again, back to our grant components. Here's our contract we just signed. Here's our status reports. I'm going to add the status report. And unless it's your final report, I would do semi-annual report. So if you've used all of the funding and you're ready to close out the grant, do final report. But if for semi-annual report, do that subtype. And then I'm going to say this is May. You can give it any kind of name you want to, but I'm going to call this May status report. And I'm reporting on today through what happened on May 15th. So this is the time period that I'm writing this report about. Okay. So that's the general information. You still need to fill out this. I know it gets confusing, but you got to come down here and do the second part. And there are just a couple questions here. The first one is scope of work. Any comment on the scope of work achieved? So the one that we're testing here, that's our test scenario, they're doing historic asset listings. They're just bringing in a historian to really clean up a list of assets for their county. Okay, so let's say that the historian has been hired for a project, um, list of known assets collected by volunteers, and deadlines set for project. Okay, so that's kind of the scope of work. That's how far we've gotten in our work. So this one is really more about when you're done and you want do those deliverables match the described in the application. So we're going to say report format has been decided and historian has begun work. So this is how we're going to measure success, is having that report done, that tangible thing. So we were commenting on that. These are very similar, and I may tweak some of this as we move through this process, and I'd love some feedback from you guys, but that's kind of how I'm defining those two categories separately there. And then any successes or challenges in this project. And we're going to say maybe that, you know, primary sources for our county have been difficult to locate. Success was found with pension paper documentation, or maybe finding, African American sources, or maybe, that's one of your challenges. So you can define what's challenging you. Do you need help from us on doing this? So any kind of feedback and comments go there. So this is just kind of a check-in. How you doing? Are we in the timeline? Is it working out? How's the budget going? Just kind of give us any feedback that you have for this status report. Save the form, and then just like you did with your application, you have to mark it as complete. Once you have the 2 check marks, just like the application, you now have submit status report. And once you hit this red button, there's no editing. So you've now submitted your status report, and it's showing up as submitted right here. Okay. So the last section I want to show you is the contract amendments. And just the same thing, you're going to add an amendment. So I want to adjust my budget for my project. So I want to move funds from, let's see, so maybe I want my historian didn't cost as much as we thought they were going to cost, and we want to print a first draft of the list of sites in a very simple brochure. I would probably encourage you to kind of take your time going through that process. But anyway, we're going to say that's what we're doing. So move funds from contractual to printing services. All right, so you have to define the general information, and then you have to fill out the details. And I'm going to say $500 of the historian's contractual budget item will be moved to printing services for a brochure of sites. So that's what you're requesting, and we're going to save the form. And you can do attachments with this as well. So if you have a new printed budget that you'd like to include, or maybe you've already designed the brochure, then you could attach that there. Then you mark that as complete. You have your 2 check marks. You're going to submit your amendment. And once you hit this red button, there's no changing it. It would then come to me. I would approve it or not, and then I would send it on to Molly to officially approve any contract amendments. And again, please try to do those in advance of those reports being due so that we can make those new changes. And before we wrap up on the demo section, I do want to take you back to our website. And under the SC250 grants, there is a page specifically for you guys as grant recipients. And I will be sending a follow-up email for this meeting. And before I do that, I'm going to make a couple changes to this page. But on here, you can it tells you a little bit about if you don't have a state vendor number, how you go about doing that. If you don't have a printed procurement policy, then here is a link to state procurement. And these are the biggies here. If it is over $10,000, you have to have a must show contract amount, charge and pay. So these are some of the rules you'll need to follow if you're following state procurement, and these are the biggies here. So you'll need three quotes usually if it's over 10,000, and we can help you with scoping, writing your own policy if you don't have one, or if your fiscal agent doesn't have one. And information about matching funds, status reports, and I will put those new dates for your quarter in here before I send you this link. The other thing, I know some of you might have some administrative overhead as part of your budget. That's that first section that, we talked about. That first section of the budget in the application is about staffing and overhead, and then the contractual is where you hire someone. So if you have overhead as part of your budget, it can only be 20% of your total ask, and we should have checked that before the application went through, but just keep that in mind if you're wanting to make any adjustments. We also have to have documentation of that. One of the things I want to add to this site before I send this back to you guys, there'll be a link here to a sample form for you to fill out for that those administrative hours. I'll also put on here travel reimbursement. We do have one group I know who is interested in travel reimbursement for some of their folks. That is allowable as long as it is documented, and there'll be some information about how to fill out that form, and that will be posted here. Also, if you, by the time it gets around to doing these reports, you've totally forgotten how to get to it and make those reports, there is a step-by-step on how to submit that report. A link right there. There's a step-by-step for requesting a contract amendment. And this, of course, circles you back to the grants page. So this is a good page to keep in mind if you have any questions. And of course, you can always reach back out to us with any challenges that you've come across or anything that you need assistance with. So with that said, questions? Oh, really?
No question. But I use an app called Cam Scanner to save all my receipts when I do grants, and
Okay.
it puts them right in a folder, so they're automatically saved. I found that to be very useful.
And what is it called again, Margaret?
Cam Scanner, CAMSCANNER, and you can link it to if you have any kind of shared drive with your organization or just Dropbox or whatever. But as soon as I get a receipt, I link it to that.
Great recommendation. Yeah.
Background.
I use Cam Scanner too. I give it a full endorsement. I work for a county government, and it just helps me save all of my receipts. It's free and easy to use. Quick snap, you snap a picture, and you have a high quality scan of any kind of document.
Right.
Great.
What was it called again?
Cam Scanner.
And because receipts are heat printed, they're not printed with ink usually. The burn evaporates over time, and so your receipt blank. So it's really good to get that right away if you can. Whenever if you go to a store and buy merchandise and purchase versus something that you're printing off your computer receipt wise. It's been a huge help. I've had a lot of grants that are a lot more demanding than what this one is, and want your receipts weekly sometimes. So it's really helpful to have Cam Scan.
That's the first time I have heard that, so thank you.
So
all right, very good. Any other recommendations or questions, anybody, about the process? And again, I will send you a follow-up email to remind you of when those deadlines will come. The system will send you a reminder as well for those reports. if anybody has any questions, I know some of y'all are waiting, like I said, on the official award letters and getting those contracts signed. Let me know if you have any challenges. I hope to get you an official email for those of you. I think, Margaret, you're one of them that I owe you a letter so that you have it officially in your files. So we will get that to you shortly, and let me know if you have any questions with that. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a fabulous day. I hope we get lots done with our projects. Fantastic. See you guys soon. All right. Thank you.